Good now, and I wasn't paying attention to what the two of you were saying before, so go ahead and
we were talking about drinking.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
our
we're all
favorite
pretty
thing.
much
Yeah.
It's our go-to. You might need to sit just a little bit closer
Sure.
to the mic and back it up where you can look at him. But
Back it up.
good heavens!
I'm not going to say anything.
Control yourself, woman.
Oh my goodness, I'm so sorry.
Control yourself, woman.
I've had a beer and a few wines, so
Hey,
A few
I'm ready.
lines.
a few wines.
Okay, so that's right. I'm looking at this.
So he was telling us about drinking.
Okay.
Yeah, we were
He had
talking.
a story.
We were talking about drinking.
I'm Linnell, and he's my brother from another mother.
I'm Rob, and she's my sister from the same mister. Hello, Linnell.
Hello, Rob.
Did you enjoy your short break from recording?
I did. It was a great summer. How about you?
It was a pretty good summer.
It was a pretty good summer.
We were supposed to take a month off, and we wound up taking several months off.
Yes, by accident.
But we are back.
We are back in full swing.
And today we're going to have a guest coming in who's been with us before.
That actually contacted us.
He wanted
He
to come
wanted-
back. We didn't have
What?
to force him or bribe him
No.
or anything.
He was like, I got another story for you.
And we said, and you want to come on. This is
This
Rob
one.
and Linnell.
Right.
Are we really related?
Right,
podcast.
right.
And he said, yeah.
Yeah.
But now I'm starting to wonder. Just kidding. No,
No.
we've got Robert Wright coming back, and some of you remember he told us some of his stories about his family. You'll have to go back and listen. I think it's episode 11.
I think so.
I do remember that when we were talking to Joe Stanley, we were impressed about how similar their two stories were.
Yeah.
So it's really good that we're going to have Robert back in later today and talk about his new information, which you might know a little bit about, but I know nothing about.
Nothing.
So it's going to be complete.
It'll be a shocker.
It'll be a shocker. I will gasp.
Shock and awe.
I will gasp.
I know you will. No, it's great. I was excited for him to contact us again.
So what have you been doing this summer?
Oh, gosh. What did we do? Nothing.
Nothing.
We've
We've had a few cookouts over here.
We've had some
with the
cookouts.
gangs.
We've been swimming. You know, I got a pool. We got a pool. We hung out. We did car shows. Nothing really.
Yeah.
Nothing big.
Hey.
But we're getting ready to do our family Thanksgiving.
Yeah. Yeah, and normally we come over here to the house and I cook a turkey and a bunch of other things, and then you bring some stuff. But not this year.
Not this year,
what
baby.
What are we doing this year?
The beach.
The beach.
Hey,
We are such fucking
Oh, we should not drink prior to this, or should we? I don't
I
know.
think
Y'all
it's
let
better.
us know.
I have more fun when we do it. I don't give a shit about this. I'm kidding. I love all of you listeners.
All 10.
Oh, have we got that
I
many?
think it is.
But yeah, we're going to Myrtle Beach.
Yeah,
we're
for
gonna
like 3 or
drive
4
down-
days. Yeah.
driving down Wednesday.
Yeah.
Kind of getting in late because all of
Yeah.
us have got to work. Well,
Right.
I don't.
And
I
Robbie
got the
doesn't
day
either.
off.
But me and Enos
Robbie and I
do.
should hang out.
Y'all should go on to the beach, and me and Enos will get there when we get there.
Man, I would be on board.
Oh, hell no.
Y'all
I'm
come
not
in-
letting y'all have fun without me.
Hell, you don't let us have fun when you're around.
That is true. That is true. The fun sucker. But it'll be a good time. The kids are coming down.
Oh,
and-
yeah.
Yeah.
So Sarah and them are going to come down Thursday.
Yeah.
And then...
And RJ, I guess, is too, yeah.
Yeah. And so it's RJ and his girlfriend?
Girlfriend, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so they're coming Thursday as well,
Yeah.
as far as you know.
I think, or Wednesday evening, something like that.
And we're going to... I think we've decided we're going to eat at Thorny's.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have some good Thanksgiving
I don't
food.
know if I've eaten at Thorny's. Did we eat at Thorny's at any point in any of the other
No.
trips?
Me and Robbie have on one of our trips. But no, we have not.
Okay. Well, I look forward to that. I mean,
Yeah.
it looks like
It's like a Sizzler or something.
Steakhouse kind of
Steakhouse.
place. And
Yeah.
they're going to have
A
Thanksgiving.
traditional.
Yeah, Thanksgiving menu items, but also their regular menu
Yeah.
items as well. So
Yeah.
if you don't feel like turkey and stuffing and gravy, and we'll see.
We'll see.
I don't know what
I
going
might
to do.
do steak or crab legs. Who knows? I'm definitely going to have some seafood at some point.
Gotta have some seafood there.
Yeah.
Although it's so hard,
Somewhere.
even at the beach, it's hard to find good seafood.
Yeah.
And that's disappointing.
I'll probably just
You
go
would think-
somewhere and get like a side of something.
I don't want
you know?
to go to a buffet.
No,
I don't want
no.
to go to a seafood buffet. They're always disappointing.
Yeah.
You pay too much money.
Right.
And you don't get... I don't mind paying that amount of money.
No.
I just want to get good food out of it. Mm-hmm. And buffets, you're getting the cheapest shit they can find so that they can turn a profit on your $50.
Yeah.
Because I would eat the fuck out of $50 worth of
Oh,
seafood.
yeah. Oh, yeah.
So, yeah, that's
But
it.
I think it'll be a good time. Nobody has to worry about cooking, traveling with food, cleaning up, leftovers, and all the leftovers we don't need.
Yeah.
It'll be great.
Yeah, I agree. Looking forward
Sitting
to
on
it.
the beach. Hopefully the weather will permit that.
We'll see.
We'll see.
I am going to find time to smoke cigars while we're
Oh,
there.
yeah. I'm going to
I've got
find time to
drink a
stand there
beer.
with you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, we're just waiting for Robert now, and I think I hear Robert coming now.
Yep. I heard something.
All right. Let's get him in here, and we'll
Y'all
get
stay
started.
tuned.
So Robert Wright is joining us again today
Yay.
to talk
Yay.
about some more interesting things that he's found in his family. She got the right button this time.
I like that. That's great. It's more applause than I've gotten in a long time.
Well, now you bring that up, and that brings me to my first question. So your band played last Friday night at the Beast in Blacksburg. How did that go?
It was okay. It was good. It
Did
was
you have a good crowd?
no. It was. I mean, it's a really.
But it wasn't because of you.
No, it's a really cool place. I mean, like if I lived in Blacksburg, I'd probably just go there and hang out and drink. I mean,
Right.
it's a really cool little place, but its location is kind of out of the way. So it's like there's a strip mall on University City Boulevard, and it's kind of back at the end of the strip mall, so it's kind of hard to get in it. So there's not a lot
it's
of like
in the strip mall itself, but back like
off the road,
As far as
off
you
the
could
street.
get off the
Yeah.
up that because up that road there's a McAdoo's there.
Yeah, this is
Oh, yeah.
right by McAdoo's,
Okay.
but
okay.
back behind like where McAdoo's would be. And so we had a lot of people come in for carry out pizza, and their pizza is awesome. I mean, it's
Okay.
really, really good. We had a small crowd, but
The Beast of Blacksburg, the Beast Pizza, that's what that is.
yeah.
Okay, because for years we would get coupons at my old workplace talking about the Beast Pizza, and I didn't put that together until just now.
It's
so
really good. It's
I'll have to
really
try
good
that out.
pizza.
And, I should get a discount because we're featuring the Beast of Blacksburg on our podcast.
I will tag
Amen,
them.
brother.
I will tag them. I share the link.
Yes.
All right.
So, free plug.
We need all the help we can get. And we want to plug them.
So y'all were the main act. You had an opening act before you?
Yeah. Our drummer and his brother have an act they call Captain Redbeard and the Moose,
Oh, I love
and they do like Irish and songs, like traditional Irish songs and like pirate songs and stuff. So they did like a 45-minute set, and then we did 2 sets.
Okay.
And I mean, like I said, I hadn't played out in a while, so it was kind of good. I felt really stiff and nervous, because I hadn't played out in a while. But there were really good high points, and there were a couple points where it wasn't so good. But you just
wrong notes here and there.
you just play through it and hope nobody else notices. But you always notice your own mistakes.
Man,
Right.
I do.
Yeah.
If I'm playing if I'm playing, especially if I'm playing electric guitar, I have a really hard time playing the electric guitar with my headphones on because I'm hearing all of those screeches and the noises that your strings are making that probably wouldn't show up too much in a full band,
Yeah.
but really sound very glaring in headphones.
And bass is really like that. Like if you find a like say Rush, okay, and you get the bass track isolated, it is really scratchy and rough. Like the mix covers up a lot of stuff.
Yeah, you'll hear a lot of the finger screeches across
Finger
the strings
screeching and
stuff.
pick noise and all sorts of things. So.
Yeah, to me, I mean, for the level of player that I am, an electric guitar is not a solo instrument because there's just nothing. You can't get away with any mistakes when it's amplified.
No.
But on an acoustic guitar, even amplified, you can get away with, a couple of dud strings or, I'd rather have a thunk from a string instead of an errant twang.
Yeah. I pick with my pointer finger, my right hand, and I had this blister on it. And the last song of the first set, my blister popped. And so it popped, and I have this dangling skin that keeps getting stuck on the string as I'm trying to pluck, and I'm like missing all these notes because it hurts, and so
Better start using
You're
the middle
like,
finger.
yeah.
Shit up.
So yeah,
Triple time.
I'm just going to say it. Paul McCartney played with a pick.
yeah. I used to play with a pick,
Picks are
but
for
I,
pussies.
I don't know if that'll come through or not. I really hope it does.
Picks are for pussies.
Did you hear what she said?
No.
Picks are for pussies.
yeah,
I guess she's talking about bass players primarily.
Primarily.
yeah. I agree.
I'm just busting chops. I don't care.
Busting
I don't
chops
play a
and
guitar
taking
or a bass. I don't give a shit.
You play a mean tambourine.
Tambourine. I know. I told him.
You play the hell of a radio.
Yeah, hell yeah.
It's never in tune.
No. He was like, "Yeah, we need what'd you say, a backup singer or a?"
Yeah.
Well, that was the
I
next
was like,
question. Who
"Yeah, I
did
don't
most
want to
of the
split the
singing?
band up right away."
Do it.
Who did most of the singing?
The guitar player. We're a three-piece. I sang one song, and as you can probably tell, like I have trouble getting close to a mic, so I'm singing way out there, and everybody's like, "We can't hear you," and so
Well, especially if you're using a dynamic mic, you have to really be right up on it to have it heard.
You gotta be holding it in your hands and making love to it, like.
That's
Who
enough.
did that? Oh, okay, that's enough. Tell me that's enough.
in one of my old bands, I used a condenser mic, and we would
They
turn
pick
the gain so high, like I could be 2 foot away from it, and it would pick my voice up.
Well, when I've tried to play open mics, that's one of my problems. I'm used to playing an acoustic guitar without being mic'd up or anything. I'm used to projecting, and I project even when I talk. So when I'm singing, I'm doing the same thing. And so when I'm mic'd up or trying to sing into a mic, I'll stand way back and project into it because I don't want to overdo it. And everybody's like, "No, you got to be right up on there." And I'm like, "But then I have to whisper." "No, just sing like you would,
I thought about getting like a headset mic, like Garth Brooks used to wear,
Oh,
just
God. Well,
just so I
shameless.
didn't have to, put my mouth on a microphone.
Don't have to
Yeah.
lick it.
Yes, exactly. But they
Use
look
your
kind of
thumb
stupid.
a little
And
bit
I
right
don't, I don't need any help looking stupid.
None of us do. But
Yeah.
Well, so we've
we've been on a hiatus, Robert,
yes.
for the summer.
The last recording we did was in June,
Oh wow.
and we did 2 recordings that day. So we thought we would just post those in July, and we would take July off and then resume in August. And here it is, the 23rd of November, and we're finally back into it. So
Just in time for the holiday.
just in
Yes.
time to cut off for the holidays because there's too much going on to be doing
Yeah.
any kind of recording. So
But we're glad to have you back.
I'm glad.
we
This
are
is
ecstatic
fun.
to have you back.
I know. When somebody was like, "Oh, I need to come back on," I'm like, "What? Huh? You want to
Well,
come back
we're going to have to put the studio back together.
Well,
We've even upgraded the luxurious Are We Really Related studios. We've got an extra mic, a mic stand.
We even have a logo that's behind you.
Yeah. I've got a couple of new guitars.
We're moving on up.
next you'll be like, you need to put video. And,
Yes.
actually.
Well, my girls are supposed to be doing that, but they're not here at the moment.
I wonder where they
I want to do
are.
video and TikTok. I think TikTok's where it'll get us,
Oh, yeah.
right? Oh, yeah.
Everybody.
Well, the
Everybody.
Reels on Facebook, which is the
Yeah.
same thing.
Yeah,
It's
same
basically
thing.
Instagram and TikToks and
Yeah.
stuff. You contacted Linnell that you had some additional information that you wanted to share with
Well,
us.
it's an
Yeah.
interesting, it's a fun
I'm
story.
going to turn my hat back.
And
Yeah.
you're getting serious now.
I'm getting serious. Yeah, I'm into it.
Genealogy is like one of my hobbies, and I've always really I got into genealogy as a way to feel closer to my totally dysfunctional family that I'm not really close to.
Right.
So, I started doing a lot of research. Well, I learned that my 5 times great-grandfather, his name was Cristobal Franciscus. He was from Germany. He chartered a ship to, himself, he chartered a ship to come to America. And so then he sold seats on it to get his money back.
Sure.
Yeah. So he brought 105 Amish or Quakers. I'm not sure what they were. I think they were Amish. And he brought them from England here in 1640. Well, one of the people that he brought on his ship was Jacob Bean's grandfather. So Jacob Bean is who founded Jim Beam.
Jim Beam.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. So
Do tell.
it's kind of cool. It's like, hey, my great-great-great-great-grandfather has a little hand in
Yeah.
whiskey.
I mean,
Right.
that should get you a discount.
I mean,
That's what
for
I thought.
sure.
I thought
At least
for sure.
10%. I mean, damn.
I mean, yeah, exactly. A little bit, But yeah, so they settled in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, and there's a whole chapter about my 5 times great-grandfather in this history of Lancaster County book, and it's got all these stories in
Wow.
it because he wasn't Amish, but he was kind of honorary Amish,
Yeah.
because he brought so many over to settle.
They're like, anytime you want to convert, dude.
Yeah,
we on your
he was
side.
proximal
got
Amish
our
or something. Yeah,
Anytime you want to give up all that technology and
exactly.
go back to
In
living
1640, it'd be
Right?
last year. It'd be 1639.
there's no more. You can't use candles anymore.
Exactly.
If you light a candle, you got to do it with a flint. You can't use a match or a lighter.
rub 2 sticks together. Yeah, so he wasn't Amish, but he brought a whole bunch over on his ship that he chartered.
So he's responsible for
For all our
bug-
drinking.
Yeah.
I guess that too, but I was going to say for all the buggies being driven on the
okay.
road
Okay, there you go.
in Pennsylvania.
So he bought land in Lancaster County and in Virginia, sight unseen, before he even moved to the New World.
Right.
Wow.
And so he owned at one time he owned something like 5,000 acres in Catawba.
Oh.
But he never saw it. He died, and his son, my 4 times great-grandfather, moved down here from Lancaster. So, and they changed their name to Francisco. So if you know
I went
any
to school with some
Franciscos,
from that area.
if you know any Franciscos that live in Salem or
Yeah,
Catawba,
yeah.
they are related to
Yeah.
me distantly.
Because I lived off of Route 311
Uh-huh.
before you go up to
We're
Do you
out-
know where-
you're
you know
on
where Upper-
Bradshaw Road.
Bradshaw.
Do you know where Upper what's
I went
that?
to
Upper
Mason's Cove and
Craig
the north
Creek?
side.
You know Craig Creek Road is? Do you know where that there's a old mill on Craig Creek
Yes.
Road? You turn off 311,
Right.
it's probably 2 miles, it's on your left-hand side. It's an old the wheel
Yeah.
is gone, but the
Right.
pond and everything. My grandma's dad and uncle and his dad built that mill right there.
Wow.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's cool. I think
And I still have a lot of friends from that area, you know. And yeah, that is neat.
I think it's owned by like a family named Sayers now.
Okay.
That own all that property that mill is on. But one day I go out there every once in a while, just look around, and there's a family cemetery where my 4-time great grandfather is actually buried off of Cray Creek Road. And one day we went out to the cemetery, and I stopped by the mill, and I was looking around taking some pictures, and this guy's like, "Hey, what are you doing?" I'm like, trespassing. And he's like, I said, I just wanted to take some pictures because, my grandma's dad and uncle and all built this mill. And he's like, "Oh, you want to go inside?" I'm like, "Yeah." And you own it? And he's like, "Yeah, it's
That's an important thing to ask for.
like, yeah." And he was the guy that owned it.
I know where the key is.
Yeah, so he let us go in and look around. It was cool. It had the little, like, the big vat that you poured the grain in, and it went down into the chute into the wheel, and it was really cool.
Grinder.
Grinder,
cool.
yeah. It was really cool.
That's neat.
Anyway. So, like I said before, I've been into genealogy a long time. And about 5 or 6 years ago, I did my ancestry DNA and, got the results back. And it's always updating as new information becomes available, I guess. I don't know. Like, I used to be like 30% Irish, and now I'm down to like 11% Irish. Like it changes like as they get more, I guess, as they get more DNA samples.
Somebody else snuck in there in the past.
The whole, like, their system evolves, so it gets more precise.
Maybe time travel is real, and somebody had to go back and change your Irish percentage
Maybe.
in order to save the world.
Maybe. I don't know.
That's a story we can go with.
Yeah.
I don't know. So anyway, I did my my DNA, and it really didn't show a whole lot. And then they started at some point, like about 4 or 5 years ago, they started showing like DNA matches, and so I see a lot of names I recognize, like my first cousins and some of my second cousins that I actually know. And so I have one on my first cousin matches, because it goes like first cousin, second cousin, third cousin, like all down, and it's all divided up. So,
right.
So I have a first cousin listed as a match, and I don't know who she is. Like, I've never heard the name, don't know anything about her. So I asked some of my other cousins, I'm like, "Do you know this lady named Carol?" Like, there's nobody named Carol in our family. Like, well, whoever she is, she's our first cousin according to Ancestry. Well, I always heard that my dad had another child besides me and my two sisters. I heard there's a fourth.
What?
There's a fourth one.
Who would
I don't
do
know.
that?
Yeah, I don't know. Well, so the way it works out, like, a first cousin has the same DNA as a half niece or nephew, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I have this name, and I'm thinking to myself, like, so she's either a first cousin or I have a sibling, and this is her child. It's like this lady is that missing sibling's child.
Right.
And so, I'm like, I want to find out. So I pursue this for like 4 years. I mean, trying to find this lady.
Right.
And I just keep sending messages through Ancestry and no response. And I mean, I'm looking up, I have a first name and a last name, and I have no idea where she's at. I don't have any idea what her age is. So, like, I'm looking in phone books for people with this name online, the white pages or whatever. I'm looking on Facebook. I'm, all these different places. I'm trying to find this lady, and I'm, so like I'll scroll through Facebook, and I'd like ask my wife, I'm like, does she look like she could be related to me? Like,
I get that. Yeah.
She's like, I don't know. So anyway, this goes on throughout the whole pandemic. I'm trying to find this lady. And finally, about 3 months ago, I get a message from her through Ancestry. And she's like, I haven't logged into Ancestry in years, but I saw that you've been trying to message me for the last 4 years.
She must have heard our podcast.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what I'm thinking.
Exactly. I hope so.
Yeah.
So, I would try like every 6 months, I'd send a new message and say, hey, I really want to talk to you. Can you please, call me or email me or whatever? And then I'd leave it alone. And, so that went on for like 4 years. And she's like, wow, you were trying to reach me for a long time. And I'm like, I want to find out who you are.
Yeah.
From her perspective, she opens it up and there's just a ton of messages.
She's like, oh
she
my
doesn't
God.
know they were every few months. Or,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she's like, this guy's a sociopath,
Yeah.
or a stalker or something.
Not that she's wrong.
No,
Just not because of this.
Yeah, exactly. There's other reasons, but yeah. So I'm sending her messages every couple months throughout the pandemic and stuff, and she's like, I haven't been on Ancestry in years, and I just decided one day to log in, and I saw all the messages that you had left me and your phone number.
You
She's
freak.
like, and I was just like blown away that she actually reached out to me. So I'm like, we're related somehow, and I'm trying to figure out how. And she tells me her story, and that she was put up for adoption, and that she met her mother a couple times when she was like in her 30s, and she's like 69 now. So she met her biological mother when she was like 31 or 32, and her biological mother wouldn't tell her who her biological father was. I'm like, okay. So she tells me the information about her mother that she had, and the information that she had about her father from like when she was adopted. They gave her like a form, like a paragraph, like your father was this old when you were born, and he had dark hair and like brown eyes, and just kind of vague stuff. And one of the things that it said was that her biological father was 35, and he and his younger brother both worked at the Champion Paper Mill in Hamilton, Ohio. So, and then she told me that her mother had worked at the Champion Paper Mill in Ohio. Like, okay. So my wife finds records from the 1950s. And apparently, like, back then, the phone book had like all your personal information in it.
Oh,
Yeah, like it had, all the people that lived in your house and where you worked and everything was in. So she found an old town phone book from Hamilton, Ohio, from like 1955, and it's got everybody listed. So we're going through that, and we find two of my uncles.
Uh-oh.
And so then she finds an old employee record, like employee list. So two of my uncles worked at the Champion Paper Mill at the same time as her mother.
Now, were they brothers?
They were brothers.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. My Uncle Mike and my Uncle Arch. And so we're kind of like trying to figure it all out. And we discovered that her mom worked in shipping and receiving, and
Receiving?
yeah, that's what everybody has said that I've told this story to. And so my Uncle Mike like worked in a different department on like the other side of the mill, but my Uncle Arch worked as a truck driver, delivery driver for the paper company.
And he's delivered.
So yeah.
Yeah.
So, but she's, the information she told me wasn't quite right, because it said that her biological father was 35 when she was born. Well, actually, he was 45, and he was married with 2 children.
Oh,
And
God, this sounds familiar.
so, I'm like, we're doing research. I call her back a couple weeks later, and I said, well, I think your father is either one of my uncles, and either my Uncle Mike or my Uncle Arch. And I said, I think it's Uncle Arch. I said, because my Uncle Mike was not married at the time. He had nothing to lose by having an illegitimate child. My Uncle Arch had everything to lose by having an illegitimate child. He had a wife at home and 2 other kids. One of his kids was like 15 when this lady was born, and
Yeah.
I think, in a small town, there would have been a lot of,
Oh, yeah.
in the 1950s,
Yeah.
It's just like 1955. There would have been
Yeah.
a lot of fallout from all of this.
I mean,
And-
these days it's just like, oh, Tuesday.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's Tuesday, exactly.
Right.
And so, so she was born, and her mother put her up for adoption, and her mother went back to work at the paper factory along with my uncle. They both retired there, like 30 years later.
Like, this is what we
Like
do.
they
Yeah,
just,
yeah.
like
We just
they
do this
they
as
had a
well.
child,
Right.
put it up for adoption, went back to their life.
Yeah.
And so, she's like, are you sure that, that it's Archie? And I'm like, all the evidence points to Archie, because, your thing said that he had a younger brother that also worked at the paper mill, which he did have a younger brother than
Right.
my Uncle Mike. And,
I'm assuming neither uncle are still around
No.
where you could ask about.
no. So she's like, so I had some information, but I only remember meeting my Uncle Arch like one time when I was about 8 or 9. So I didn't know anything about him. So I'm like, I feel obligated in this way. Like, I dropped this news on this lady, this is, who your family is or whatever. And she's like, well, can you tell me anything about Art? I'm like, no, not really, So then I went on a mission to find Archie's children. They were like my first cousins, but they were so much older than me. I didn't remember them.
Right.
So I tried to look for both of his children. They had already passed away. So I tracked down his granddaughter, my uncle's granddaughter, who lived in Indiana. Found her on Facebook. We've got her name from Ancestry, and kind of working down the family tree and across, and it's really hard to kind of find proximal information. Like,
Right.
yeah, you can build your family tree really easy, but it's hard to go like sideways and down. Like, it's really hard to come.
It's those twigs that
It's
are
those twigs, yeah. So it took us a while to figure out who Archie's grandchildren were.
So she didn't really even know who her dad was.
She didn't know who her dad was at all. I
Right.
mean, even when she met her mother when she was 30, she asked her mother who her father was, and she said, well, it doesn't really matter. He just passed away about 2 months ago, which actually was real. Like, she met her mother when she was like 30, 31, and my Uncle Arch died. Like, she met her mother in September, and my Uncle Arch died in July. But she still wouldn't tell her.
Right.
Like,
It's the code of shipping and
Yeah,
receiving.
yeah, it must
Yeah.
be a code.
You just
Yeah.
when you're in shipping and receiving, you don't tell tales.
Yeah, I guess not. This lady met her mom about 2 months after my uncle had died, and her mom still wouldn't tell her who he was. And I'm like, well, it had to be my Uncle Arch. Like my Uncle Mike, he was single a lot of his life. I mean, he was
nothing to protect there. Like
yeah,
maybe
like
for
he had nothing.
Arch.
You know, he had nothing to lose by getting somebody pregnant at work. I mean, like he just didn't. And so anyway, I find one Archie's granddaughters and grandson, and it took me a while to do. And I called them, and I'm like, I don't know if you know me or remember me, because probably the last time you saw me, I was probably like 8 years old. And I said, but I'm your cousin, and I want to tell you something, and I want to ask you a favor.
Pop wasn't.
And they're like, okay. And I was like, your grandfather had an illegitimate child, so you guys have an aunt. And they were like, really? Are you sure? And I'm like, yeah, I'm not 100%, but I went through all the evidence, the circumstantial evidence, and I'm like, everything points to it. I mean,
I could probably get a prosecution.
Yeah, exactly. I said all the evidence points to it, and so she would like to know about Archie. If you guys were old enough that you could tell her about him, like what kind of person he was or whatever. And she said, yeah, sure. So I got their permission. So I called Carol back and gave her their information. And she was able to contact her niece and nephew and get some sense of closure of
right.
Like, because like I said, she's 69 years old, never knew that anything about this, her father or her father's side of the family.
Right.
So it's like really overwhelming at first, and I mean every time we talk we spend 2 hours on the phone talking about different things, family stuff and whatever. But she let it all sink in. She's like, I'm really glad that this worked out. And, she's like, it's given me, some sense of family that I never had before. And I'm like, well, that's cool. I mean, I'm glad, and I'm like, you at least have one cousin and a niece and nephew now, what I mean? Like, which is kind of cool.
And information that she didn't have before at all.
Yeah.
And it was because you dug and kept digging to, and hounding her, to get in contact with you. Your daughter is on her way over here.
Good.
And
I just looked at her location.
And so, I really started doing all this digging to find my own answer.
Right.
Because like I said earlier, there's always rumors that my dad had another wife and child that I don't know about. Like my mom was his third or fourth wife. Not sure.
Yeah.
Because my cousin...
once you have that many, it's hard to keep
It is
track.
hard to, my one cousin... who my dad was really super close to, told me a couple years ago that my dad told him he spent 5 years in Argentina married to a woman.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's interesting. I haven't found any evidence of that, but that's what he told my cousin.
Right.
So I've been like trying to find information about my own father, and he was literally off the grid for 30 some years. Like there's no paper trail from the time he got married to his first wife to the time he married my mom, like 30 years later. So like I don't know where he was or anything. So crazy.
Well, we've had our media manager join us here today.
Yeah. Our PR person.
who was being strangely quiet. I kind of thought she'd
I know.
give us a little shout out or
Right.
something.
I didn't want to interrupt you.
I already interrupted by saying you were here.
Hello, Sarah.
So anyway, it gets better though.
Uh-oh.
No way.
So
This is a roller coaster.
I know.
in the meantime, you know, like I said, I've been searching to figure out who this lady was for 4 years.
Right.
And in the meantime, another profile pops up on Ancestry that says I am also first cousins with a guy. And I will say his name because I am looking for him now.
Oh.
His name is Paul Rush. And his
Paul
name is
Rush.
all I have. And I have been banned from Facebook multiple times for spam because I've sent everybody named Paul Rush a message
Right.
at least once. But anyway, so in the meantime, when all this is going on, I'm trying to find Carol. This, it's like you have a new DNA match, and I look at it, and it's a first cousin. And I'm like, oh wow, this is interesting. And I'm like, once again, I go through the whole process. I ask all my cousins that are still alive, and because I'm the baby of the family, so most of my first cousins are in their 70s.
Yeah.
They're like 20 to 30 years older than I am. And so I ask all my cousins, have you ever heard of anybody named Paul Rush? And they're like, no, that doesn't ring a bell at all. And I'm like, okay. So,
But a first cousin could be like a half sibling.
and that's also what I thought. That's also what I thought too. So, in this whole thing of trying to introduce Carol to our family and her niece and nephew and stuff, I said, on your DNA profiles, do you have a match with a Paul Rush? And she looks at it and she's like, yeah, I do. And I said, my match with Paul Rush is 17%, right? I think 14 or 17. Like it's like somewhere like that, like 14, 15, somewhere in there. And I'm like, do you have a match with Paul Rush? And she goes, yeah, I do. And I said, what's your percentage? And she goes, 27%.
Hey.
And I was like, I gasped. And she goes, what does that mean? And I immediately know what that means. And I'm like, I didn't want to just drop a bomb right there without, being positive. But I know pretty much what 27% DNA match means. And I'm like, I don't know. I'll have to do some research on what that means.
I want to back up just a minute here. So when you gasped, was it like or did you actually say gasp?
No, it was more like
Pause.
it was a lot of, there was
An
some profanity.
inrushing breath.
Yeah,
And
it was,
wow.
yeah. I think I said FFS, in my head, like that is kind of what I said. And yeah, I'm like, I don't really know. I'll have to do some, some research because I'm not really sure what 27% means. And I did know. So I get off the phone and my wife's like sitting across from me and she's like, that doesn't look, that expression on your face tells me something. And I said, Carol has a half brother. She's like, are you sure? And I said, yes, because she has a 27% match with this guy named Paul Rush. And it's obviously on her father's side because that's how her and I are related, is through my uncle.
Right. If it was on her mother's side.
Damn, this uncle.
Yeah. and so
She's been receiving a lot.
I wish I could have met Uncle Arch and partied with him
Yeah.
because I think he was a.
So my wife Melissa, like, she's on her phone and she Googles what 27% across whatever the little micro. I don't know what, it has a thing.
Gametes and alleles and stuff.
Yeah, exactly. And she's like, yeah, 20 24 to 30% match is a half sibling usually. And I was like, yep, that's exactly what I thought. So I'm like, well, now I'm on this quest, the same quest that I was on for 4 years to find this lady Carol. I'm trying to find this man named Paul Rush. And once again, like, all I have is a name. I don't have a location. I don't have an age. I presume that he was probably born in the same community, like in Ohio, that she was. Like, she knew where she was born and where she was adopted out from,
Well, I mean, he was the delivery driver. Was he a local delivery driver?
I guess he, once they made the paper, he delivered the paper to wherever they needed paper.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So he was a delivery driver on.
So was this Paul Rush going to be younger than her?
I have no idea.
Okay.
He could be any. I kind of figured.
So you still haven't found him, I guess.
Still haven't found him. So he
him.
could
Okay.
be. He could be the same age. He could be 10 years older, 10 years younger.
I mean, Arch got around. He could be your age.
Yeah, I mean, realistically, yeah, he could be. I mean, I don't really know. So, once again, I'm looking for this guy named Paul Rush, and I don't know how to go about trying to find him.
Oh, this seems like a job for Joe
And so,
Stanley.
Oh, my goodness, yes. We have got to get in touch with Joe Stanley.
Yes.
Or get Robert in touch with Joe
Yes.
Stanley.
because like I said, I've went through obituaries. I've went, because I'm like, well, maybe if I check obituaries, maybe I can see maybe he's already passed on, and I'm looking for somebody who was born in Ohio, presumably born in Ohio.
Or he could just be listed as a surviving something. Somebody who died.
Yeah, so I'm looking at other people on Facebook named with the last name Rush, and like I started contacting them because nobody that I've named Paul that I've contacted has gotten back to me, because I think my messages are going to like their spam folder, and if they don't check their spam folder, they're not going to see my messages. They don't show up in their regular message stream. So I've been also like, I look up, whoever, Patricia Rush, and I'm like looking through her friends, and like, there's an old man named Paul. How's he related to you? So I've been on this quest, and like after, a week or so, I was like, I told Melissa, I was like, I guess I need to tell her that she has a half brother floating around out there. And so I called her back, and I'm like, hey, I did some research, and I know what that 27% means now. And she, really? What? I said, well, I'm pretty sure you have a half brother out there somewhere. And she's like, oh my God, really? And I'm like, yeah, I mean, and she's like, is it the same situation as mine? And I said, I don't know, but I would assume that either his mother's name was Rush and he took her maiden name, or he was adopted by a family named Rush. I don't know. And so, like I said, I'm on this quest now to find this man, or at least, or find a trace of the right man, the right person, and figure it all out. But yeah, my Uncle Arch got around. Like, he was obviously...
He was rushing.
He was... Yeah, I mean, he was a ladies' man, apparently. And, I mean, what is true of all my dad and all his brothers. I mean, this is the 30s and 40s and 50s. I mean,
they were fertile.
They
were fertile.
I mean, and my dad, I mean, like I said, my dad was 50 when I was born. So, that's why I was looking to see, who these people were, because I really thought they were more directly related to me.
Right.
And that's what I wanted to find out. And that's what started this whole thing was, trying to see if I have any half siblings out there. And, my wife made a good point. She's like, if there's two that came out of the woodwork, there's got to be more that haven't ever done DNA.
That's what we were thinking.
Yeah.
With our situation. I did Ancestry also, but I'm like your cousin. I got messages and I just kind of ignored them.
Yeah.
People, but it was like I was finding fifth and sixth cousins, and it's like, well, that's not really that.
That's not really
interesting to
that
me.
related. I mean, it is, but not.
Right.
It's. I mean, yeah. So I was looking to see if we had other half siblings out there that our father might have produced out there somehow, but
Yeah.
so far none of that.
So, and
And I find that hard to believe.
like I said about my uncle, I'm like, making a mistake once is one thing. Like,
You do
doing it twice is just careless.
It's not a mistake.
it's not a mistake.
pattern.
Yeah, it's a pattern.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm like,
He's just a Randy mofo.
Like a serial killer. He's
Yeah.
a serial pregnancy.
dump her off.
Dumper.
Yeah, I don't know. But yeah, like,
I just wanted to see where you were going to go.
I didn't
with
know.
it.
I'm glad he chimed in.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure.
but yeah, I'm like, if there's two, there's got to be more. I mean,
Yeah.
because that's just carelessness.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
and it's selfishness in a way,
Yeah.
because obviously he was interested. I mean, he was,
Well, he's interested in the sex. For
but
sure.
yeah,
And
he
then
wanted
he's like,
to
fuck it after that.
and he wanted to protect his own life.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
his own
Yeah.
Right.
family. That he didn't really seemingly give a shit
and none of
about
this-
these other children.
And none of this comes out until after he's dead. So he's like, I'm
He's
golden.
like,
Yeah.
I'm going to heaven for this.
and and there's really, like, my dad was the youngest, so all of that generation is dead. So like, I can't call my dad and say, hey,
Can't
did you
verify.
know that Uncle Arch had two? And he'd be like, oh yeah, I knew about that.
Yeah.
Like, that's probably what would happen.
Right,
That's
right.
probably exactly
Two,
how it
that's all
would
you
go. And I'm like,
Let me know when you find the other two.
why didn't anybody else know about this? But yeah, like,
That's when it's tough, when you start running into dead ends and you can't get direct information from somebody. You have to get information that's been passed down, if at all,
Right.
from somebody else, and that starts getting frustrating.
I mean, because Rob knew nothing about me.
I had no idea.
If I didn't have that information, I mean, we wouldn't be here. This wouldn't be going on,
yeah. I mean, I thought you guys could definitely appreciate
Oh, yeah.
the
Oh,
story
absolutely.
because it
Definitely.
kind of relates to
Yeah.
you guys.
Yeah.
And like I said, I'm still, subsequently I'm still trying to find information on my dad, who was off the radar for 30 years, essentially, like nothing,
Right.
like nothing.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
and my wife and I, like, maybe he was in prison for 20 years. I don't know. Like, I really don't know, because I heard stories from my cousins that, their Uncle Bob wasn't around for decades. And like, I'm still left with all these questions of my own, of my dad and what he did and what he was doing and where he was, and was he really in Argentina, or was he in prison somewhere, or why
Well,
was
he might have been in prison in
Argentina? Yeah, it's very possible. I mean,
Maybe he was a freedom fighter for somebody.
I had two of my cousins confirm that when they were little, that men in suits came to their house looking for my dad. Like, they went to my Aunt Juanita's house and they went to my Uncle Orville's house, that I can confirm. Right. And they were looking for my dad sometime in the 50s. But that's, it's
Like
just
Men in
hearsay.
Black.
It's hearsay. Like, I don't know,
Yeah.
where anything. And that's really what started this whole quest. So, now that I've dropped the bomb on her that she has a half sibling, a half brother, like, I've got to follow it through. Like, I just feel like I do. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like I've got to follow it through to some end.
Right.
For
I
her
mean,
sake.
You're this close.
Because I opened up the can of worms.
Right.
I need to put the lid back on it.
you don't
She's
want
a
to
little
say
older
you.
So-
and, yeah.
You don't want to say you got a half brother out there. Oh, well, it's been nice knowing you.
Yeah,
Don't
That's all
contact me
yeah.
anymore. Good
Yeah.
luck.
That's all I got.
Exactly. And so that's what I need help with now is trying to figure out, like, I even joined like Facebook groups for the community where I think he was born, and I'm like, does anybody know this man? And this, like everything Christiansburg or whatever, I know that you probably got groups here in Salem, whatever. And I'm like going in these groups, and I'm like, anybody know a guy named Paul Rush? Like, have him contact me,
Admins are slowly getting pissed off.
Oh yeah, I'm sure. Like I said, I've been restricted multiple times on Facebook for spam.
Well, you come to the right place with the far reach that we have with this podcast.
Oh God, and it goes way beyond.
I mean,
our
like
control.
up the street.
He might live up the
He
street.
might.
I mean,
very well
Oh
could.
God damn
I
it!
mean, he could. It would be that ironic that he lives like 2 miles from me. Or-
I mean, we live
He's the
on
guy
the
that
same
flips you
street.
off. He flips you off every morning when he drives by because for whatever reason.
It's like, hey, you're the guy who's letting his dog shit in my yard every day.
Like,
Like,
mother.
I don't even give a shit that we're related now.
exactly. So I'm trying
I'm
to
thinking
find
maybe
this guy.
we
I hope
can hook
that's
you
not
up
me.
with Joe, or
It is.
I
we could get
think
with
Joe
and
Stanley
Joe
would.
Stanley hasn't like a good.
I mean, you two both have the same
Yeah.
hobby in genealogy,
Right.
and he might have some resources or knowledge that you haven't been able to find yet, or
Mm-hmm.
he might just have some advice on another way to look for
Yeah.
it. And,
Yeah.
and hell, he might know Paul Rush.
Right?
Somebody has to.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't realize there were like 75 of them on Facebook.
I don't really know any rushes, but
So I don't even, like I
I
said,
know a number of Pauls, but
I
that
know
doesn't
a
really
lot
help.
of Pauls.
I know a lot of Pauls. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I have, like I said, all I have is a name. Don't have an age. Don't
Yeah.
have anything else.
So
Yeah.
he's not on social media, we think,
He could be.
but he could be. Okay.
Yeah, he could be on social media because, like,
But we think he's in the Ohio area, or
I think that's where he could be from.
Okay.
But I don't know, like, where he wound up. I mean, I have
Right.
no idea.
Right.
And it's the only reason that I found this lady Carol is persistence, and that she just by chance logged in to Ancestry and saw like 12 messages from me and said, this guy sounds like he's on fire. I better call him and see what's up,
Yeah.
And I mean, that's literally the only way that I found her, because there were so many people with her name. I mean, I had no idea, where to even start.
Well, I got to say, I would not have that kind of resiliency to keep going after it. I'd maybe dig a little bit, and the first door that shut in my face, I'd be like, okay, well.
That's right.
It's almost like solving a mystery. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like
Or
Thank God I was
or those
persistent.
logic puzzles where you get Tom and Mary have the same last name as Jim, but Nancy does not have the same. And you have to try to figure out on the grid
how
where
many
everything-
cookies do they have
Yeah.
when they count them all together?
Some
One
of
of
these
the,
are not
one
like
of the
the
party
other.
goers brought green beans. The person who brought green beans is not Mary.
Exactly.
And it's like I get the first few check boxes, and I'm like, this shit's
He
boring.
gives up so
I
easily.
do.
I did not. Thank goodness.
That's true.
I might let
But
some
you
time
you
go
sat
through
on it
but
for a year
well,
before.
I mean, it's like and before that, I had tried so much of like. This is before internet and shit, and I'm writing stuff down on paper. I'm getting phone numbers out of phone books. I'm calling these places, and then they're saying, "Oh, yeah, I know him, and I call this number and ask for this person." Back then there was a lot of legwork.
Yeah.
It wasn't like you could Google a name and it come right up.
Exactly.
And so, then I'd be so exhausted from doing that. I was like, "Fuck it, I just cannot. I gotta go. I got a kid to raise."
And then all
And
that
then
work,
years
and she
later,
found
it'd be
me.
Like, yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm like, really? This is what I get? All my work?
I mean, how far apart were you guys? Like 10 miles this whole
Well,
time?
one
or-
time we lived on the same street.
Yeah.
wow.
Right here
You
in
know where
Salem.
Craig Avenue is? Well,
Where the
I don't know how
park-
much about
the
Salem.
park.
Yeah.
Longwood Park.
Uh-huh.
I lived on that road that goes right beside Longwood Park in a house, and she lived in an apartment building that was like less than 2 blocks away.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is amazing. And, like, and I'm doing, I find myself like, I'm going through Facebook, like, I don't say I do it, maybe every couple weeks. I've realized that when you search something on Facebook, like, it doesn't always give you all the matches you're searching for. So,
No.
like, I search for this guy and I get like 75 matches, and because I've searched for him, there other people who I guess they have their profile turned off so it's not searchable. They come up as like, you may know Paul Rush.
Right.
So I'm like getting other leads, and I'm doing the same thing. I'm like holding up the phone to my wife. I'm like, does he look like he could be my cousin?
Right.
Like, well, I think we have the same ears or whatever,
You do, when you don't know who you're related to. You keep
Yeah.
wondering, do I look like that person? Do I have their features? Or-
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I really want to get closure on this for her sake, because she's went her whole life, being an only child or whatever,
Right.
And
Yeah.
so I want to get closure for her sake, but I want to get closure for my own sake, just because it's a mystery to solve, and and I don't give up on things really easily,
Yeah.
unfortunately, which is it's not always a good trait to
And
have.
we need people to start setting a limit with names. Like, if there's 5 Paul Rushes out there, that's the limit.
You gotta
Go with
change
a
your
new
name.
Go with
Yeah.
a new name.
Yeah.
No more Pauls. We don't have time to search
I mean-
100 Pauls.
Like there's a website. It's through the U.S. Like vital statistics or whatever, and you can put your name in, and it'll tell you approximately how many people have your first and last name. And so that's what finding anything about my dad is so hard. There's like 20,000 people named Robert Wright.
Yeah.
I mean, there's 15 in Montgomery County besides me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, so it makes it, hard to find information on him, because I find information
You just
about
have a glut of information, and none of it.
it's the right person.
Yeah,
it's
the majority of it is irrelevant, so you
Yeah.
can't really do anything with it.
Yeah.
But you can't discard it yet because you don't have enough information
Yeah.
to say this definitely isn't.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we've joined like newspapers.com, and they have all these 100 newspapers on microfiche, and they're searchable and whatever, and you search for Robert Wright, you get all sorts of stories. I mean, and it's like, you have to go through and look at the article, and
And anything from the 50s you can't discount because
Yeah.
it could be when your dad was off the radar.
yeah. And, so it's a mystery, and it's, like it just the whole thing, like, that has bewildered me is like, how could he just like have the one kid and put it up for adoption, and then it happen again? Like, that just perplexes me. Like, you know what I mean? I don't know. It's
That's somebody who either doesn't learn from their mistakes or has no care at all of consequences.
yeah, exactly. And I mean, I can't say because I didn't know him, you
Right.
know. I mean, but from other accounts, from talking to his granddaughter, like, he was very involved in her life, and they went places together and did and stuff, and with his grandson, and like, they have these fond memories of things, doing stuff and of him, and I'm like, that is so contradictory to what the evidence shows, that he was a habitual philanderer, and, and whatever,
Yeah.
Well, a lot of people just lead lives like that. They, what everybody sees, and it's not that it's a false story. This is just the story that
Nobody
these
knows.
people see.
Yeah.
And then there's another story that goes on that most people don't see, but the people who do see it would never believe the first one.
Yep. Exactly.
It's just
Yeah, because when
we all live dual lives.
I talked to her,
right.
when I talked to his granddaughter, she was like, I'm like, look, I'm not trying to offend you or ruin your memory of your grandpa or anything like that. I'm
but
just
that
like,
mofo got a ram.
but, all the evidence points to this is, and I love my dad. He was the person that he was, right? Right or wrong, like if he spent 20 years in prison, it's not going to change my feelings about him.
Right.
It'll just be nice to know like that information just for my own peace of mind or my own curiosity. But it's not going to be like, oh, my dad robbed a bank or whatever, and was in prison for 20 years.
I disown him now.
Yeah, exactly.
What
That's
would be
just
the point of that?
Yeah, that's just stupid,
Yeah.
And so I don't.
I mean, you don't have to condone it. Doesn't mean you.
But some people would just change. Like you present that kind of information to them,
Oh yeah.
and they either they deny it or they swing the other way.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
but. That's kind of it in a nutshell, and I thought it would be interesting to share with you guys.
It certainly is, and
I've already
I'm so
reached out to
glad.
Joe, so we'll see.
Cool.
What
I'm so glad that you came back in to tell this stuff. Fascinating. That's all we have for you this time.
we want to hear your stories, especially those of you who have siblings you've discovered later in life, like us.
Send email to linnellandrob@gmail.com. That email address will appear in the podcast episode's description, and we'll read all your emails over the air.